Hello and welcome to the DrivingMaul Show, your weekly update on all things in rugby. And yes, we've had our daily 5 p.m. Lockdown beers, which will be more kind of and rugby chat shows. It'll be more about kind of news shows, but it's going to go sort of chatting about what's the daily news thing. In here, we're going to be looking forward more towards the Bledisloe Cup 3, plus also any news items from the past week that the boys haven't had a chance to add their 2 cents worth. They'll pop in. I will do a quick news summary at the beginning, but as I say, we've discussed quite a few of these on the Lockdown Beers one, so you might want to have a listen to some of those shows available on Twitter as videos or as our podcast as such from New Zealand Sport Radio on all your favourite pod catchers. Joining me this evening, well, we've got Nocturnal Rights in the live chat. Hello, hope you're doing well there, sir. And also Stephen Harris. How are you doing, sir?
Very good. Thank you, Paul. Always a privilege and a pleasure to be on the TDM.
Thank you. And just if you could make sure your microphone isn't rasping up and down your zipper, that'd be great. Just caught your zipper on your hoodie on the other side. There we go. And also we have got Boa. How are you doing, sir?
Very well. Thank you. Kia ora, everyone. I hope everyone is well. I hope everyone is safe. Always good to have Nocturnal. He seems to be an eternal fan, and it's lovely to have you on the show, Nocturnal.
Cool. Well, let's just, before we dive into, and good evening to Simon as well, who's there. And Nocturnal Rights says, starting to build a beer tower, Paul, over on the left here. Well, yes, these are the ones I've had during lockdown beer shows. Well, I should take you through to my kitchen. You can see what a proper beer tower looks like. Because yes, I've got a whole bunch in there. Good evening to Big Will _rugby from Twitter as well. So people joining us from Twitter and from YouTube. So thank you guys for joining us. Just a quick recap of some of the news then from the last week. We've because it has been a big news week. The All Blacks, Maori All Blacks, the All Blacks 15, the All Blacks Sevens, the Black Ferns. The Black Ferns Sevens have all got a new sponsor from next year, which will be Altarad, which is the building firm team. Also, Bernard, hello, welcome in from Facebook. I've gone over that a few times as to my opinions on those. So that's happened. We've also got a new Super Rugby competition next year, Super Rugby Pacific, with the 12 teams that we expected, round robin format, a few extra games, and then more than half, 8 teams heading into the quarterfinals. A very NRL or AFL style competition, which is coming up. We've had player movements with Josh Ioane moving from the Highlanders to the Chiefs. We've had him being backfilled with the legendary Marty Banks, or no, actually Marty Banks himself. And also we have had a couple of Karifi and his partner have been hosting and going to parties as well during lockdown. So I think that's most of the kind of news stories from the last week. We've also had Steve Hansen come out talking about the game being overly complicated and needed a simplification of the laws as well. Have I missed any news stories, boys, or any kind of comments on those news stories you would like to chip in with?
Going to take a bit of filling, I'd got to say an hour, but you'd be surprised once we get on a subject how far that particular subject can go into a half hour or 40 odd minutes, and then we're squeezed for time right at the end. But no, not at the moment, Paul.
Boa, any particular ones?
Look, I'm very, very happy about the fact that Joshua Ioane has found a home with the Chiefs. I think he'll be a good addition. The reason is his style of play suits the type of players and player profiles the Chiefs have, and I think it's good. It's a good timely intervention for his career per se as well. I think he needs a bit of change of scenery because, as we all know, he's a bit of a party boy. He likes to have a good time, and he's had his fair issues off field, deep down south. So I think great timing, and it's always nice to see players immediately find a home when they've been released from contract.
Well, it doesn't sound like he's been released from his contract. It seems like his contract has just sort of been moved between teams, because he's still got one more year of his New Zealand rugby contract to go. So that's what it looks like from the outside, anyway. But I obviously am not part of it.
I think there was a lot of internal pressure from the franchise to move him along, and I think that's where NZR High Performance would have gotten involved to make sure that one of their contracted players does indeed have a home. So, it kind of swings in roundabouts, and all 5 franchises have a very good relationship with NZR High Performance. So this is, I think it's a win-win situation for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as you say, win-win situation that Joshua, he was stuck behind Mitchell Hunt anyway down there. This way, he'll probably be first choice 10 at the Chiefs. They've backfilled with Marty Banks, with a character, with a cult figure down there, which will help with turnstile numbers, and also he's a decent player as well as a backup fly half. So yeah, as you say, I think this is one of those ones which is a win-win situation for everyone involved on that one. And if he puts in a good performance, who knows? Maybe he will get a renewed contract at the Chiefs. On that one, there was a lot of rumours talking about him moving to Moana Pacifica, or lots of noise around that side of things. Look, everybody, what Stephen and I have gone and done is I've gone through nearly all the Premiership teams. I will have done by tomorrow. He's gone through all the Championship teams in the NPC, and we've pulled out all the players that we think are potentially available for Moana Pacifica and the Fiji Drua, to give you an idea as to what those squads will be. That will be coming out as a supporters special over the next couple of days, so look out for that one. If you'd like to become a supporter of New Zealand Sport Radio, then head over to patreon.com/NZ Sports Radio to become a supporter of New Zealand Sport Radio. Also, Simon was asking about the details of the new sponsor. I've just put a link in the live chat for everybody across YouTube, Facebook, and Patreon. So YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, to the recording of the show where we talk about that one. If you listen to the next podcast, that as well, you get even more information around the Al Chirad sponsorship, because yes, it does include some games being played in France. Wow. Now, looking forward to Bledisloe Cup 3. And guys, I think in the live chat, I put kind of like 3 kind of questions for you. I think the first one that we should have a I can't find my there we go. Is what side do you think the All Blacks will put out or should put out? Here is the squad that we've had that are heading over, or that have headed over, to Perth. Now, they were all having a party after the Bledisloe Cup 2 at a location of interest. Thankfully, all of them tested negative. So luckily nothing came out of that. But a little bit of a shock, and they all travelled unknowingly that it was a location of interest, folks. So that was a little scary story this week. But looking at that squad, I think as a philosophy, starting with you, Stephen, is it should Ian Foster be doing mass changes for this one and try an experimental side? Should it be small amount of changes, or should he be putting out his best team for the Bledisloe Cup 3? What's your view on the approach he should take?
Well, firstly, I think with the Bledisloe Cup wrapped up, I think here's the perfect opportunity to actually rotate the squad, because if you think about the upcoming games, they've got in this particular rugby championship, there's a certain team in green that I'm sure that they want to be on point by the time that they hit the ground running, and that's with the greatest of respect to both Australia and the Pumas. Even though we shouldn't write those 2 teams off, I would like to think they'd make a few changes and bring some guys in who we haven't seen thus far in the first 2 tests. I think this is a wonderful opportunity right here, right now, and I think there's a similar opportunity against Argentina. I think you can roll your strongest side out maybe in the first game against Argentina, run a team out, give a lot of your reserves a run for that second game, and by the time you hit South Africa, I think you'll need to put two strong sides on the paddock 2 weeks in a row. So what I'm saying and what I think he's going to do is pretty much what I just said.
Bella, do you think, do you agree with that? Do you think experimental full strength, which is what Stephen suggested?
Look, this is a double-edged sport, and I'll tell you why. I agree with Stephen in principle because, again, if you're taking a squad, a wider squad of players, it makes absolute sense to give players game time and give them opportunity to get some run-on form. But the other side of the equation is, of course, Perth as a venue. There is a statistical pattern. The All Blacks have not done well at all in Western Australia. If you recall the last game, we lost by a record margin, points against. Obviously, there was a red card. So things haven't really gone to plan for the All Blacks in that part of Australia. It's a bit of a toss-off because knowing that as a coach, I wouldn't try an experimental side. I'd give my top starting 15 as well as the extended 23 a run, because a loss for Ian Foster would mean the heat would be right back on him. So it's a bit of a gamble if he goes in with an experimental side. However, because we've had a slightly extended break, judging by how both teams have responded with that extra week off, the form's been a bit scratchy. So maybe there is room for the All Blacks to experiment. However, I am very, very nervy when it comes to statistical patterns. The reason why these patterns exist is, for whatever strange reason out in the universe, it's got this strange way of forming these numbers and results. And All Blacks, as I'm going to repeat myself again, they have struggled at Perth. So really depends on what side of the coin you want to subscribe to. If I was Ian Foster, I would take no chances. I would start my strongest and best 15 and make sure I kill this game inside the first 60 minutes.
Well, I think I'm probably somewhere in between the two of you. I think there'll be a number that the next three games will not be the strongest side, and we'll see rotation through. But I do think that there are combinations that really need more game time together and need to work and need to settle. I think one of the problems that the All Blacks have currently is they are going through a rebuilding phase, and though they won't talk about that and say that. And I think that that we need more, that certain player or certain team combinations need more time together. And I'm thinking particularly things like the back row, for example, is one area that I would suggest that they need more time to gel and get used to playing with each other in that.
Paul,
concept.
One thing I'd like to add is, from an experimental point of view, this is perfect time for Ian Foster, in the sense that obviously with what's happening in Auckland and New Zealand at the moment with level 4 and level 3, there's not the greatest of interest on this game. Obviously, there's lots of distractions with COVID and lockdown. So this might be the perfect camouflage for Ian Foster to roll out under the radar sort of side and actually get the W, and then come out and say, hey, look, I said I put my second string side on the paddock and we still won. So it's going to be a very crucial week for more than just one reason.
Yep, Simon makes a good point that actually it's good that the stadium is sold out for this game. So that's fantastic. It shows that there is the interest in Australia in rugby, and they've had record crowds and also viewing figures for Super Rugby AU, for example, this year. So rugby is on. It definitely has a bit of a resurgence over the ditch, and so yes, it'll be a. Let's be honest, there's been no travelling support, so it's going to be a sea of yellow or gold. There won't be many black. Obviously there'll be the expats out there, but it'll be mainly a gold fan base, or the sea of blue. So I think that there will be a lot of a cauldron kind of atmosphere for this one. Let's be honest, the All Blacks haven't made themselves popular over the other side either of the ditch, which means that I think that animosity will come through from the crowd, more so than from the players. But I think the crowd will have a good time barracking the All Blacks about whether they wanted to be there or not, etc. In the live chat, we've got a mixture of people saying experiment, and this is not a Mickey Mouse game. This is for the Rugby Championship. Play your best side. So yes, as I say, I think it'll be a balancing act. I think over the next 3 weeks, we're going to see players rotated, and no player will play all three games in that one.
Paul, I was going to say, at some stage, we're halfway through a Rugby World Cup cycle, pretty much. At some stage, you're going to have to test your depth. You know, it's all very well picking these guys, but if they're just basically holding tackle bags, you know, it kind of defeats the purpose, or you're going to end up running your top guys out all the time. At some stage, they're going to have to give guys like Joe Moody or Tuanga Fasi a run, who have come back into rugby. Guys like Braden Enoa. At some stage, you've got to give them game time. At some stage, without Richie Mo'unga in Australia, you're going to have to give, dare I say it, Damien McKenzie time at first five. You know, because basically, if they have an injury to Bowden Barrett, well, that immediately changes your dynamics, doesn't it?
It does, but I guess the flip side to say building depth is that we've until about 2 weeks ago, everyone was asking, does Ian Foster know who his best 15 is? Because it's changed so much over the last in the games that they have played over the last 12 months. So from that point of view, is that we've got depth. Maybe it's hasn't had that much game time, some of it. But from that point of view, Simon says that that's what the Pacific Island Games and November Internationals are for, rather than this. But no, I do agree with you both that there's no point taking players to carry tackle bags, and that I think all of these players will play in the next 3 weeks at some point. So then, let's go about trying to pick and trying to even agree what the match day squad will be, and let's start at the top there. Who wants to start with hookers? Which hooker would you start with, and who would you put on the bench?
For me, I would start with Cody Taylor, and I think Samasoni Takiaho has actually done enough to command that bench position.
Bob?
Well, I agree with the two selections, but I'd actually start with Tokeaho. I think I'd just run him like that wild rhino for the first half and maybe 10 minutes in the second. Absolute, beast. He just loves to smash people. And I think that would set the impetus. And once we get good, fast front football, it's game over.
Again, I think this is going to come down to who you want as your props, but I think I'm guessing which way Stephen's going to go there with the experienced hooker and two props who haven't had much game time recently. And if you're going to go that way, I would start with Cody Taylor. I wouldn't put an entirely sort of fresh front row on. I'd be looking at either Taylor with two newish props, or Samasoni with two props who were starting in the last Test match. I think that's how I would look at doing this one. The Nocturnal Rights thinks actually Cody Taylor might lose his spot in this tournament. That's a big ask to suggest that Cody Taylor isn't number one. I think he's nailed on number one to my mind.
Gee, we give Nocturnal a rep, and he goes completely the other way. Nocturnal, respect your brother, but I think you're on drugs on this one, mate.
Now, look, Cody's clear-cut number one. It's just that given that this is Bledisloe number 3, and just looking at Tokeaho's form line and how he will make an impact, and looking at what the opposition they play, I'd love to see him run at some of those Aussie forwards. And soon as they're a bit gun shy, and they have shown, and the statistics show that whenever Tokeaho runs at people, chances are he will get at least 5 post-tackle contact meters.
Yes. So yeah, big Will's with you there, Stephen. What's nocturnal smoking? Okay, so those are the two with Asfaw Amua taking a rest this weekend. Now, 8 props. I mean, wow, we've got a lot of props here. Who would you start and who would you put on the bench, Bar?
Well, I'd start with the 2 proven starters this season so far, with Bauer and De Groot. As far as the bench, I would bring Joe Moody definitely on, because statistics and history has showed that whenever Joe Moody plays the Wallabies, he's had an outstanding game, apart from I think he picked up one injury. The other front rower, I would go with either Big Carl or Ofa, depending on how Ofa has pulled up with his fitness this week in preparation for the captain's run.
Stephen, you on board with that?
Yeah. At some stage, you're going to have to give both Ofa and Joe Moody a run at this stage. I would probably have them I'd have both of them off the bench, and I would actually bring Carl Tunukiafi in as a starter on the loose head side, and keep Nepo Lolala. That's unlucky for George Bauer, but they would be my 4 starting props.
As I said, I think all these guys will get a start or get some game time over the next 3 weeks. But as you say, coming back, I think Moody and Offa have got to come from the bench if they're going to be involved in this one. Ethan de Groot's is so much fun. You kind of want to see him given game time. I find it so difficult with props, so I'll just go with you guys on that one. From the locking department, I think with Sam Whitelock, obviously we forgot to mention there at the top, the hookers, obviously that Dane Coles is missing and will be joining to make that a group of 4 in there. So yes, and a lot of people are saying that Aaron's saying Taylor's number 1 and the other 2 guys are number 3, waiting for Dane Coles to come back. I'm not so sure about that one. I think number 2 is up for grabs at the moment. I think obviously Sony and Asafua don't have the same experience as Dane does. But I think time is telling on Dane, and the number of injuries he's had as well. Kind of starting to tell with him.
Paul, I was going to say the only thing that is really against Asafo Amua is just primarily his size. If I'm not sure with his size, we know he's strong, but I don't know if he's quite big enough in the hooking stakes. Where with Samasoni, he does add some real genuine bulk to this team. So for him, this is a huge opportunity to cement himself as the 3rd hooker and then make a play at the second or first spot over the next 2 seasons.
Yep. Moving on to locks then, with Sam Whitelock missing and joining later on. You've got to say that Brady Retallick has to start in this game, for my mind, to keep that experience there. He's also been showing some better form and I think needs more game time after his time in Japan. For that mind, I would then probably start Scott Barrett alongside him and bring probably the eye off the bench. But I'm happy either way with those 2. Stephen, you're pursing your lips and putting your head to the side there.
That obvious. Once again, it's about giving some guys some game time. Scott's come off the bench, and I'd probably use him off the bench again. I'd actually start with Tuipulotu and Retallick as a combination. You've got a genuine front of the line out grafter, heavy man carrier, and you've got your line out winner, your taller man in the middle.
Lots of nodding there from Boa for our podcasting listeners who are listening rather than watching the show. I think he agrees with you on that one then.
No question. We start with our 2 most experienced locks, Patrick Tuipulotu and Retallick, and we get YE off the bench. I will not cite Scott Barrett on that pitch purely because of that last red card, which put a big gaping hole in us. So Scott Barrett, line through him for this one. Go with our best 2 starting locks and Blood YE for some experience.
So you don't think Scott Barrett's got some demons to lay to rest here, and should be given the opportunity to do that?
Not at Perth. He can do that somewhere else.
But that's the whole point, is the demons are in Perth. That's where you have to lay them to rest.
Like I said, I get twitchy feet about these statistical patterns. I don't know what causes it, but I respect it. And for that very fact, I would just leave Scott Barrett completely out of the equation. There you go. Arun agrees with me as well. Retallick, Tupulotu, and Wai off the bench. Easy.
It is actually one of the easiest positions, I think, for us to discuss. Moving on then to the Lucy's now. Ardi Surveyor has got to start as captain. For my mind, I'd probably have Papiali'i and Akira Iwani, because I think this is a combination that needs work. In Big Will's going, though, for Blackadder, Papiali'i and Savia. Boa, do you want to lead on this one? Show your thoughts on this one. Where would you go with this combination?
Look, I've got a few concerns about Papiali'i, particularly because he missed some very soft tackles in that last game at Eden Park. But on the other hand, I love his aggression, and he is, quintessentially a battering ram along with Ioane as well. So I don't want to tinker too much with that back row. My preferred starting back three would be Ioane at 6, Papiali'i at 7, and obviously Ardi skippering at 8. The question mark or the asterisk is I'd really like to see what Hoskins Sotutu's form has been like at training. And again, I take my mind back to the game he played at Eden Park last year against the Wallabies. He had an outstanding game. And again, it's horses for courses. So I would asterisk Sotutu on the bench, but start with my best back three.
Of course, Stephen, you're shuffling around there, ready to give us your thoughts.
No. Listen, I don't disagree. I think that loose forward trio remains the same, and I think Jacobson simply makes that the bench because he can cover all three positions equally well. A little bit tough on Hoskins at this stage. I must say, just a side note on Hoskins Sotutu, and it pretty much tells me why he's got such good skills. I actually saw an old video of Hoskins playing for Marist under-21s in the Auckland Rugby under-21 final against Papatoetoe. Now, this was from maybe 2 or 3 seasons ago. And guess what position he was playing?
Winger.
First 5.
Oh, first 5.
Played first 5. So that was quite a stunning. Listen, if I can find that video, I'll try and pop it up on the NZ Sport Radio website. But it gives you a little bit of insight.
Facebook page, you mean?
Our Facebook site. Beg your pardon. That'll just give you a bit of an insight to the guys. Just skill level, it is crazy, but you are right. At some stage, we're going to have to get him back on. But like I say, we are making a few little tweaks here, and that combination just seems to be getting better and better. Once we've got them established, then you know what they're doing.
Yeah. What I was going to say, Paul, was what I like about Hoskins is his ability, his kicking skills, that ability to chip and chase, and also read the play out wide is outstanding. And what I saw him do against the Wallabies, it was exceptional. So I think horses for courses, I just have that little inkling that he's going to do something real special.
So there you go. Boa, the coach, telling you we now pick number 8s on their kicking ability. Well,
yeah, because with the rule changes, particularly with the 2250, all those grubbers behind, and Hoskins has that ability. If anyone in this All Black side, probably apart from Richie Maunga and Bowden Barrett, because it's in their job description anyway, I would actually pick based on the evidence which Stephen Harris has presented as well, because he has played at first 5. Hoskins Sotutu, he has that ability to grubber, which is a bit of a dying art in the modern game.
Oh, look, it is good. I am uncomfortable with the balance of these Lucies, though. You've got Jacobson, who's been playing number 8 for Waikato. You've got Ardi Surveyor, who we're playing at 8. We've got Hoskins Sotutu, who is an 8. You've then got Blackadder and Akiri, and Ioane, who are both very much 6s. And Papiali'i is really the only 7 now. I'm not a fan of this. I don't think I'm not comfortable with the balance of those 6. I think there's a bit of a lack at 7 there, which may mean that Ardi gets overplayed over this series of games. That's just my little concern on that one. Moving to the inside backs then, and Bowden Barrett will clearly start at 10, as he's the only person listed as a 10 in the side. Inside him though, Big Will's gone for TJ starting at 9. Do you bring him back to start, or do you start off with Webber and then put TJ on the bench? Stephen? We'll just ask him to unmute himself and we're good.
Yeah, it'll be harsh on Webber. He would. Gee, once again, although you know what, I think I'd start with TJ simply because he's actually got that combination with Barrett from his Hurricane days. Extremely harsh on Webber, but Webber would definitely be coming off the bench.
Bo?
I'd be more inclined to start with Brad Webber. You know, like I said, the strategy has to be, given that we've struggled at this venue, look to kill this game in the first 60 minutes. He brings that X factor. He brings the spark. And I think start with him, get TJ Perinara on to finish the last quarter. But again, you know, it's, you know, you can go either way because Steve makes a very good point, particularly with experience. But I just feel that with the opposition and a real fast track, Bradley McCormick Webber is the man for the job to start at number 9 with Bowden Barrett.
McCormick, is that really his middle name? Brilliant.
It is.
And also, Bowden Barrett being the only specialist 10 shows the sex of being too conservative. Look, Richard Mwanga is going to be joining. The question is, only question is really how long. He's suggesting this might be a problem against South Africa. Well, look, I think Richard Mwanga is probably trying to get out there in time for those games. If not, we've had TJ has played at 10 for the All Blacks before. You obviously got David McKenzie who can do that, and also Geordie Barrett. David Havili has also played at 10 recently for the Crusaders as well. So look, there's plenty of options there if they need it. But so yeah, you would want a specialist 10 starting against the Springboks. I do agree. Now I've quite deliberately not gone for the to say which kind of who the backup fly half is on the bench, because I think that's going to depend on who you put in your back three. But looking at the centres, we've obviously got Enor back, David Havili, Rico Iwani, Anton Leonard-Brown, and Quinn Tupaia in there. I hope Aaron suggests that perhaps Hoskins Tutu is perhaps he's the replacement. He's the backup fly half.
Perhaps.
There you go. I've always been saying that look, there's definitely a tactical suggestion here of a crash ball fly half that people have has not been investigated enough in my mind. So there we go. Ram says that TJ is not a real 10. He's there only for fun, easy games. Well, true. It was a tier 2 game at the Rugby World Cup where he played 10. But look, he can cover in a pinch. I want to say there's a number of players who can do that. Not so much. You only have confidence in Dave McKenzie. That TJ, Havili, who else did I say? Geordie and Geordie all were a bit sort of makeshift 10s. Let's be honest. So Big Will goes ALB and Tupaia, the Chiefs combination for the centres there. If it is those two, then it'll be Tupaia at 12 and ALB at 13, as they were playing at the Chiefs. Boys, a bit harsh on Havili if you're in that way. What are your thoughts on this one?
For me, that would be harsh. If you think back to the start of the season or the opening combination, that if you think back to those Fiji tests, the two guys that they started with was Havili and Anton Leonard-Brown. I think Foster will probably want to see those two together at least a little bit more, because it was his original strong combination. So for me, I like the way Havili plays. He just offers something a little bit different. He's a second 5 with a kicking game as well. That's what I like at international rugby is a midfielder who has got a kicking game, and of course Anton Leonard-Brown comes back into the squad. It also probably tells you about another selection on the flanks for me.
So who do you then also put on the bench?
In terms of the player coming on the bench,
just to cover the centres.
Oh crikey! I think you're probably looking at Rieko Ioane, but to be honest, I would be starting Rieko Ioane on the wing. That's for me personally. I'm just not too sure about that. Just let me think about it once we get to the we make.
Well, throw it over to Boa. Boa, what are your thoughts then for the combination? Big Will suggests here that Havili's already played every game.
Yeah, well, that certainly is true. However, I think this is the single biggest loophole this All Black side at Perth this Sunday can actually exploit. The reason is Madukau Rover's best export, Hunter Paisami, who now plays for the Wallabies, will not be available. So the Wallabies are without their first choice second five. Let's get Havili started in there. Let's get him running hard onto that ball, into that breadbasket. Just watch how the line break start. It'll be game over inside that first 20 minutes, provided we get fast, quick ball. So start with Havili, get Rieko Ioane at 13. We get Anton Leonard-Brown off the bench, again coming off to finish that last maybe 30 or 20 minutes. But let's get our best player on the run-on form we have seen from the last few games, on the statistics, into that pivotal position. Let's get him some quality ball. And I'm pretty sure, gentlemen, this is the one position and one area where we can easily beat and dominate the Wallabies.
So I guess it's the same three you've both kind of mentioned there. The only question is whether Havili or Rieko starts. Sorry, Anton or Rieko starts, or which one goes on the bench there, leaving out Enor and Quintapaya. There, I guess the two junior members of that of that combination can be with rugby experience in that point of view. So I guess you're expecting to bring those guys involved, get those guys involved against Argentina with that one. Having heard, I hadn't twigged that Havili had played every single game. So I think there is possibility of resting him for this one. But there has been a 2-week break. Was it 3-week break now since the last game anyway? So perhaps play him now, then rest him against Argentina. I think it's possibly the way to go.
And also keep in mind, if they start Samu Karevi, and I really hope they do, Havili's going to run circles around me. Keep in mind, he's coming back from sevens rugby, transitioning and straight into an All Blacks game. So good luck, and I wish Karevi all the best because he's going to need all that luck.
Well, off the back of playing in Japan as well, then sevens, as you say, he hasn't had any 15s recently with that one. But we're going to talk about the Wallabies after this. So let's just wrap up the back three then. A lot of people calling for Geordie Barrett to be given an opportunity at 15. Then in the live chat, we've had suggestions for that we should stick with what we had at the end there with Reece and Will Jordan. Is that the back three you would go for, guys? George Bridge seems to have fallen out of, seems in the public size anyway, has sort of fallen out of favour recently.
I don't know if he's fallen out of favour. I just think there's probably better players with a little bit more X factor around them. For me, the back three, I'm thinking, you probably start with Damien McKenzie again at fullback. Sevu Reece is on one wing, and for me, Rieko Ioane stays out on the flank for now. But that also gives you the opportunity to have either Will Jordan or Geordie Barrett off the bench.
I'm going to throw some wood in the fire. Boa, your thoughts on this bit?
Oh, look, clear top pick for me. D-Mac at fullback, and I'll start Reece and Jordan on the wings. You're right. George Bridge, he hasn't really fallen out of favour. It's just that, if each and every other player, when they've been given an opportunity, they've taken it with both hands. And, I wouldn't say he had a he had a scratchy form line, anything but that. He just had a few moments where people just ask question marks saying, has he lost speed, etc., etc. And I can assure you he hasn't. Looking at all the GPS stats, but yeah, I'd actually throw in Jordie Barrett in there just as a finisher, and also that last quarter, I feel that the All Blacks, looking at the form line we've been presented with, coming off a bit of a break, we've been a bit scratchy in that last 20 minutes. So any opportunity we get the points, let's shoot for goal. And boy, we all know he's got a cannon of a boot on him. So I'd go with those starters as well as Jordan Barrett coming off the bench.
Yeah, I was going to say the other option is maybe D-Mac comes off the bench, and then you give Will Jordan that opportunity at fullback. So there's another option there. What I do like about what Jordie Barrett does bring to the game, boy, he's got such a big boot. He can carve off some big ground. He's a great 50-22 option as well.
We've just lost him.
Paul, one thing I'm just going to chip in as well. I think we might actually see D-Mac play a little bit at first five at some point in this game. So let's just keep that in the background as well.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of didn't ask for who was going to be the your 10 replacement, because the replacements clearly are going to be depending on whether D-Mac, I think, will be involved, whether he's on the bench or whether he's at 15. He'll be there as backup for Beauden Barrett. I can't see them going with one of the other guys as that backup. Personally, I don't think we'll see Rico on the wing, but I do think particularly against South Africa, that we're going to need bomb diffusers. So we need two fullbacks, so I would definitely give. And I think out of Will Jordan, Jordie Barrett, and Dave McKenzie, Will Jordan's the best winger of the three. And so I would be giving him time on the right wing in preparation ahead of the Springbok tests, because I want someone who can deal with those high balls that we're going to get. So I would have him on the right wing. Then that means we'll have Stephen back with us, and yeah, I think it's time to give Dave McKenzie a break and put him on the bench, and I'll put Jordie at fullback, and then Sever Reece on the left wing, and I think Rico skips will either be on the bench or skips this game. Probably on the bench for me, along with Dave McKenzie and TJ on that one. So there you go, folks. That's what we think the squad is going to look like. Whether Aaron's saying Jordie needs game time for the South Africa games. Look, I'm not sure whether he will actually get to play against South Africa. For my mind, I think his height and his extra physicality, again for that high ball, will be a good option. Will be the way to go against South Africa. But clearly, so far this season, D-Mac has been the first choice 15 for the coaching staff. So that's the All Blacks side of things, folks. From the Wallabies side of things, where do they go from here? Do you think for them it's keep with the best team that they can, which means sort of consistency as much as possible? Obviously, they've lost a couple of players who are off have had to travel to go see their partners who are about to have kids, a bit like the All Blacks have missed 3 players, which includes Hunter Paisami, and I've gone blank as to Lukai Solikai.
Yeah, Lukai Solikai, Loto.
Thank you. Are the two that are missing? So, Boa, what do you think Rennie's approach is going to be? Is it going to be just replace those two and keep the best team out there?
No question. Absolutely. He cannot afford another loss. More so, given that they're coming off an extended break, he can't afford a loss which say is 15 plus points. That said, Wallabies historically, history and the form line at the venue is on their side. So he has to make every bit of that count, put his best 15 and finishing extended 23 on game day. He just replaces those two players, plays the strongest 15 and try and beat this All Black juggernaut.
Yeah, don't disagree with with Boy, I mean, so the two changes. I think you'll probably see Darcy Swain come into the lock to replace Salakai Loto. So that's just a straight swap. I'm not 100% sure whether they'll play Samu Karevi. I think probably Ekito has probably done enough in terms of what I've actually seen of him on the field, especially against the French, to maybe warrant a starting place. Or else, the only other thing is maybe they if be interesting to see if Dave Rennie will be a little bit more conservative, and he goes back to maybe Matt Tumua in that number 12 jersey. For me, I probably personally wouldn't go there. I think they just need to do something a little bit different.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't want to see Tamua in that 12 jersey. Look, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about Quade Cooper as well as Karevi, obviously with James O'Connor still injured. That means that Lolaseo is expected to start. Now, if you don't have Matt Tamua, then the other option is obviously Quade Cooper to come off the bench, which would be an interesting one. Look, with Tamua being so out of form, I'm not actually anti having Quade there, but he's just had no game time recently, which is going to be the problem for me. But I get to me that problem there, or that is a problem for them, is that second, it is backup fly half, because there just doesn't seem to be any options at the moment.
Yeah, look, I wouldn't risk getting Quade out there. He's gonna, if they're two, I think he's gonna get a very, very harsh reality check. This is test level. You are playing the All Blacks, and I think you don't need to give the All Blacks any more motivation than the man who really loved to rub it in when he played the All Blacks, particularly that, ugly history with Richie McCaw, he put the knee in and all that sort of grubby antics. One thing I do have to say is, if the Wallabies want to be really successful in this test, they really need to focus on their goal kicking, because the All Blacks, as you've seen in their games thus far, they've had a high propensity of giving away a lot of penalties, and it's been a very consistent pattern of penalties, particularly in between their own 22 and halfway. So that is an area I sincerely hope the Wallabies have done their homework and practiced their goal kicking, because the more they can actually slow this game down, the more they will stall the All Blacks. What they don't want happening is giving the All Blacks lightning quick ball in that first quarter. It'll be game over. In fact, we could have the floodgates open. So they've got to play smart rugby. They've got to play territory, and they've got to get their goal kicking right on point.
And this is the problem, isn't it? Not so right, so your left field Pataya at 15. Look, I don't think we'll see Pataya at 15, but Banks has not been great. And as he says, for goal kicking, then Tamua. But we've just said we don't really want Tamua on the pitch just for his goal kicking. The other option then is Reece Hodge at fullback, potentially to cover off on that one. And that does definitely mean you cannot give penalties away around halfway, because he'll easily knock them over, a bit like Geordie has plenty of range. So I would be happy to see Reece Hodge in there sometime for that one. Ram makes the point there that Quade Cooper is a good option because of the experience he brings to the side. Yes, he does. And with 70 caps, he is the only player with more caps, two players with more caps, James Slipper and Michael Hooper. So he's the third most capped Wallaby in this squad. Yeah. But still, to me, he's just not had game time, and that's the real problem.
And not to mention, are you gonna if you had the choice of Tumua or Quade Cooper on the bench, you'd probably be more likely to go with Tumua, especially more so if Lolaseo picked up an injury during the game.
Yeah. And they have played Hodge at 10 before, so Hodge could be the backup 10 as well, is another option. But I guess that goes down the makeshift route that we've seen, that we've been talking about with the All Blacks as well, because he's not played 10 much or at all this season, I don't think.
Jens, if I know Dave Rennie, he's a very astute coach, very strategic thinker. I think he's just got Quade Cooper there just as a distraction, really. So the media can write about him. It's what I call the Jake Paul effect, the YouTuber who pretends to be a professional boxer, that sort of thing. And No, I don't think Dave Rennie will have any part of game day squad for Quaid. He's probably there to be a bit of a mentor, but he's been out of the game, and particularly the modern Test game changes at a rapid rate, or not. It's just going to be suicidal to throw someone in like that with no recent experience or recent run-on form.
Yep, no, you're quite right. He's doing a fantastic job in hogging, in giving the media something to talk about, which isn't about the fact that Dave Renning's lost so many games, right? So he's changed he's managed to get the narrative away from the record of having lost the last 2 games, etc., to something else. So yeah, it's been perfect from that point of view. So I guess the only other thing that actually I forgot, the one news story that we didn't talk about at the beginning, that I think we did, that I'd like to get your opinion on, Boa, before we knock off, which is before I move on, we'll have live post-match reaction to the Bledisloe Cup 3 here. So don't forget to join us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter for live post-match reaction to Bledisloe Cup 3 on Sunday. For that game, but something that Stephen and I spotted that got announced just as we were, or we spotted just during the lockdown beers that goes out live on Twitter, folks, is that Aaron Major, or how do you pronounce the name? I've got it.
Major,
like the army rank. Major.
Actually, a bit of a backdrop story. Obviously, Aaron Major is related to Nathan Major as well. Both brothers, both former Cantabrians, both former Crusaders as well. And in the case of Aaron's, carved out a reasonable career. But they are nephews of the great Speedway rider, and his second name is Major, but I've forgotten Scott and his first name. So maybe one of our viewers.
Don't worry. No. We don't need to. We don't need to go to the live chat. Ivan Major is who you're talking about.
Major. There you go. Ivan Major, one of the great Speedway greats. So that's nephew of, or uncle of.
Yep, and also their cousins are Connor and Jackson Garden Basher as well.
Wow.
So yes, a rugby family through and through, and Wikipedia is a fantastic source for all this kind of stuff. So, Bo, what do you think of his appointment as the rumored appointment as the Moana Pacifica head coach?
Look, Aaron's honestly a very interesting choice, a really interesting choice, because he's not your most expressive coach. He's a very quiet guy. He sits in the corner and he's very strategic. He's got all his plans well laid out. I mean, he's had a stint with, I think he was coaching at Leicester for the Leicester Tigers in the Premiership, and then he was with the Highlanders. So interesting school of thought. Me personally, as far as Moana Pacifica, I would have gone a very different route. But he's got the credentials, he's got the experience. And he is a bit of a tactician. So it'll be interesting to see how all the players in Moana Pacifica respond to that style of coaching, that type of coaching. Because, the Pacific style of play is very unstructured. And having mentored, worked with, coached, and, coached coaches who work predominantly in a club where, we have, 97% of our players are from Pacific Island origin in South Auckland. You got to get the mix of structure, strategy, planning with the razzle dazzle just right. You get the right mix. It's a very, very dangerous, potent cocktail of rugby. But if you do, if you overcoach things and if you over strategize, over plan, it's going to be a very negative sort of response. So look, he's a clever rooster, Aaron Major, and he's certainly got a lot of playing experience with a lot of Pacific Island players. So hopefully, he can stitch this all together. But in my my honest opinion, I think it's a very intriguing and very interesting choice. But let's just wait and see, because end of the day, the proof will be in the pudding.
Absolutely. Look, Simon says, that what Moana Pacifica need is coaching experience. And sure, he has got experience as a Crusaders assistant. That period at Leicester Tigers, has been assistant coach for Samoa. So he's got experience of dealing with the culture that's there, or being part of that culture. And then also with the Highlanders as head coach. Now, I guess my only point is that his time at Leicester Tigers wasn't successful, as he kind of went in, took over from Richard Cockrell, and then left soon afterwards. It was not a great time for Leicester Tigers. Again, at the Highlanders, not a particularly successful. I'm not sure that we consider that to be a successful time between his time at the Highlanders either, and got replaced by Tony Brown. So I guess his 2 head coaching stints haven't gone well. It would be my view. So I think from that point of view, I'm a bit reticent. I'm a little bit concerned. But Simon does make the point. Who else would coach them? Who else is available to coach them with that one? Is the question. And with that, I'd say, look, you've got, again, people who perhaps haven't got it was some situation. You've got players like Colin Cooper is currently coaching club rugby in Taranaki, so he would be obviously a successful Taranaki coach. Not had real injury problems when he was head as Chiefs head coach. Didn't go down very well. So I mean, there are other. Joe Schmidt is not available. He's working for World Rugby, Nocturnal. Kefu, Big Will suggests. I mean, any other thoughts about sort of experienced coaches?
Look, I have a very strong suggestion, and someone who I'd love to see coach Moana Pacifica is current Auckland NPC coach Alama Rumia. I've got a lot of time for Alama. I've done a lot of work with him, and I think he brings a real level-headed approach, particularly around players of Pacific Island descent, where he gives the right amount of structure and right amount of freedom. And I'll quote something I heard a while back. This was late 90s, early 2000s. Former All Black prop Brad Johnston, when he was coaching Fiji. I remember in one interview, they asked him, so what's it like coaching Fiji? And he said, look, I have 14 wingers and 1 scrum half. That's what he said. So sometimes with these players, you just got to give them the right amount of freedom so that they can go and express, that DNA in their rugby. And that's what hunters will come to. You're never ever gonna get a South African or Springbok style rugby from Moana Pacifica. They'll throw it around, and that is their strength. And if you recall all the way back when the All Blacks played the Pacific Islanders, I think it was early 2000s up in North Harbour Stadium, same sort of thing. Soon as the game opened up, it was all razzle dazzle, and that really brought that Pacific Island style of rugby into the fore, and you give these guys a bit of confidence and momentum. Boy, they're going to be very difficult to stop. But to do that, you have to have the right ringleader, ringmaster, and orchestrator. In my view, I think Alama Rumia would have been a fantastic choice. But let's wait and see how Mr. Major carries on.
Well, I say it's rumoured at the moment, hasn't been announced yet. We'll have to wait and see if it does actually happen. So we'll have to see. Well, I guess I am starting to get a bit concerned that they haven't announced any head coaches or players. And as I say, Stephen Harris and I will go through, or have gone through, or going through all of the NPC squads to show you to give you an idea as to who is available potentially, or who they could put together for that squad. So folks, look out for that video over the next coming days. Sorry, Stephen, I'll give you a chance to talk about the on this topic.
Yeah, Paul, really quite excited about that. What I'll do over the next 12 hours or so, I'll actually post all the Bunnings NPC Championship squads, but I'll also highlight a lot of Pacific Island players that we do have in a lot of these teams. And even just going through a quick list that I made this evening, I probably found about 50 odd names who don't strike me as contracted, and what I mean by contracted, Super Rugby contracted players, but players that are just outside that group, may have been in wider groups, and even some real high-profile names that have actually played Super Rugby in the Otago squad. The likes of Jerome Ainsley has played a little bit of Super Rugby. Of course, Jared Adams, who we know from Auckland here, Ray Nuia, guys like that. These are guys that have got a lot of mileage under their belt. But I know one player that we touched on and we think might be one of the first signings for this Moana Pacifica squad is Sekopi Kepu, who's with the Counties Manukau squad. Okay, a lot of people will say he's at the veteran stage, but boy, he would bring a whole lot of experience to a Pacific Island side. But there's plenty of talent. I'll post these on the New Zealand Sport Radio Facebook site. So have a look. Give us your thoughts in terms of what you think. I'll try and help you out and maybe highlight a few players who have represented their nation in the past.
And Steve, don't forget a few of the Japanese players, because given where it's been playing on a transfer window, you can get guys like Ata Maikiola, who's played a bit of rugby at my club. Absolute destruction machine at out wide, and of course guys like Amanaki Muffy. I know Muffy had a bit of a history with his off-field antics, but that's all behind him. So there's a very wide talent pool. It's just that hopefully the managerial machine can get in order and line up all their ducks in a row.
And just before we go, selection is in the eye of the beholder. On our own chat group site, I sort of posted 3 players who were basically missed by the Blues, and those 3 players that I posted weren't too half bad either. One of them happens to be Aaron Smith, who was in the 2010 Blues wider training squad. Guys like Teleni Sao was another player. I just forget the other player I might have mentioned, but sometimes some talent can be missed in your development squads only because guys are either have been contracted for 1, 2, or 3 years, and that sort of underlying talent gets missed. I suppose that's going to be the challenge for this Mana Pacifica coaching staff.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to go back to a question from Nocturnal Right. Says, what was the problem the Auckland players had with Iremaya? He got results. Well, look, he's still there. He's not going, and he doesn't have to leave and go to Moana Pacifica. I guess part of the issue with him going to Moana Pacifica might be his contract being available. But look, last year was a very tough time for him. He had family people who were sick through COVID, and also a lot of people. So his funding was cut considerably, and he had a lot of people helping him out, working or basically volunteering for free on the NPC one. He got very emotional towards the end of that season. I've got I had an interview with him, personal interview with him, where he broke down and actually cried during that. That I was asked not to publish, and I have not published it. But one of the I think it was the Herald or whatever wrote it up as to what happened, so it's not secret that it happened. So look, it was there was disagreements between the coaching groups as well. I think you can see that by the fact the coaching group changed, and I think so. And also there are a number of players in that Auckland squad who've been entitled and have had to be informed what does it mean to be a professional rugby player. I don't think he is like Laurie Mains in the fact that players dislike him, but I do think some of those players have needed to be put on a shorter leash because they just don't get what they're just too entitled as players, and have been told all the way through their careers that up to this point that they are talented and that they need to, and perhaps the effort isn't required so much. Those are my thoughts. Boys, feel free to add if you want to, or if you don't want to, there's no big deal.
I think Lama was a well-loved coach at Auckland, and just to reiterate the point, I think he's a great coach. I have a lot of time for him. I've done a lot of work with him, and I know what his coaching style is. And we look forward to many, many great things from Lama.
Yep. So folks, thank you very much for joining us. We've come to the end of the show. As I say, I'll be back at 5 p.m. every single day over on Twitter with the lockdown beers and rugby chat. Generally, that's looking at the news stories in the previous 24 hours, just to help you get through lockdown and keep you entertained. Hope you all stay safe and let's obey the lockdown rules to come out of it as quickly as possible. Thank you, Boa. Thank you, Stephen, and good night all.